Namaste, and welcome to our very special episode of Reflecting with AINA. Today, in the honor of Women in Medicine Month, I have the privilege of speaking with Dr. Sylaja. Dr. Sylaja is a professor and head of neurology at the Sri Chitra Institute in Trivandrum, and she leads the comprehensive stroke program at the institute. She's also been the past president of the Indian Stroke Association and sits on the board of directors for the World Stroke Organization. She has many leadership roles, and yes, she is a leader. And in addition to that, she has published almost 200 papers and written many book chapters. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Sylaja as she reflects on her laudable career. Welcome, Dr. Sylaja, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you, Dr. Geetanjali. It's in fact a privilege, and I would say it's an honor to be in this interview. As I was telling you before, I don't think that I'm a person to be interviewed as a Woman of the Month for this leadership program. But definitely it would be nice to talk about and tell about the experience from a Indian perspective of how women come up in their career in India. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think, in everybody else's eyes, you're definitely a leader. And I think it just comes from the Indian culture where we're told to be humble. So I think you're just extremely humble. So just kind of, as you mentioned, would you share any experiences or any, memorable experience that you can think of where being a woman kind of helped shape your career in medicine?
If you look at the Indian perspective, now things are changing a lot. When we were all doing our medical school and even our internal medicine, and even when we were doing the neurology residency, there were very few women in medicine, but MBBS also, when we are doing the medical school, like more than 60 to 70% used to be men. But if you come to internal medicine, I still remember we were 12 of them and only 2 were females. So that has totally changed now in India. So if you look at even starting from the medical school, now 60% is women in medical school. And the things have changed in India. You can still see when we go for the neurology conferences, in national conferences previously, you find very few women neurologist, and that's also has totally changed. Now you look at most of the centers, it's so the perspective of women coming up in their career in not only in just internal medicine but in a super specialty level has totally changed now. So if you ask me like how as a woman things have helped me, I think the Indian setup of being in India as a support system was one of the biggest thing which has really helped me as a woman in coming up in my career. So I would say that for all of us, the family comes always first, especially I think for women. And we are really happy when our family, we feel that we are a very important part of the family and we are doing everything for them. So that makes you very happy. But at the same time, that makes you give a lot of compromises in your career. But if you look at from my perspective, and that is the same for many of the women in India, is that, the support system from the family is very good. And if you ask me, the biggest support system was definitely my spouse, my husband. So because I married when I was in my final year of medical school. So like I would say more than most of my career was after my marriage. So I think that's the biggest support system. And second thing, I think it's my parents. In India, it's most of us get a lot of support from our parents, both from the in-laws and also from our own family. So I think that made a real difference. Second is always because when women come up in life, they are looked upon as like, okay, so you get a lot of respect. That's what I feel always. Oh, with all this, all your responsibilities, so you have been able to come up. So that kind of a respect we get, still that is there. So I think that makes you more confident. And I would say women are good at multitasking too. So probably because that is inherent in us, because you do a lot of housework at the same time you do a lot of our professional work too. So I think from the beginning itself, we are so used to doing a multitasking. And one more important thing I would feel about women is that they are very gentle and compassionate. I'm not telling that men are not, but I think women are definitely more gentle, compassionate. They understand, and that at the same time they can be confident, and at the same time they can change their roles. I think that makes a big difference.
I love that you said kind of that nurturing comes naturally to women, and that's a big part of being a physician and a big part of being a leader, because you're trying to grow people around you and not trying to kind of dominate on them or lead them. You're kind of taking everybody with you. So that's, and I think you mentioned a support system, and I think that's a great thing about when you're in India. You have a great support system, your family, and I think what you didn't mention was people, other younger generation watching you. I think, like you said, it was much harder back then, but you have still overcome so many challenges and look where you are. So I think the younger generation looks up and says, you know what, if they could do it, we should be able to do it too. We have much less barriers, and, look up to you and kind of follow in this steps. So thank you for sharing that. You also mentioned that, just being a woman and mother and, taking care of a family, sometimes you have to let go of some opportunities just because you don't want to give up that time, or, you want to save that time for your family. Are there, if you reflect back, is there anything you think of, any opportunities that you feel you might have taken, or it might have shaped your path a little differently if you were a man?
I would say, like, it's very interesting in the sense that after my neurology residency, I joined in Sri Chitra Institute as a staff. And in fact, I wanted to go for a fellowship much earlier, but I had 2 kids because very early after my marriage. So in fact, I had to postpone my fellowship for a significantly long time. So because that in very young period, it's not easy to go with the whole family, because we don't have that much of financial this thing to go as a family. So most of the time, like I had to postpone, I would say more than 5 or 6 years, your fellowship to doing it. And I still remember when I sent my first email to Andrew Demchik, who is the director of the Calgary Stroke Program, to do my fellowship. After accepting me, he put in a sentence in that asking me, are you really sure that at this stage you want to come for a fellowship? Okay, so I think I had to postpone my fellowship for some time. But I would say that even if I went late, in fact, there was a better thing about it, because after having a very good learning of, after being a neurologist for some time and knowing what are all the things you want to learn, that you identify only when you start working. So that way it was good. So what is that you want? I could get the feel, but I think there I definitely had to make some choices. And in fact, as you know, like we won't be able to spend many of the weekends for meetings. So we definitely need to have a compromise, because I think weekends, we also feel happy only when you are with your family. So I think that way. So I think those compromises, I don't think it just affected me much, but I think there are some compromises you may have to make with regard to that. But I think from a family, unless you're very happy in your family and your children and your family is happy, you're not going to be very happy in your professional life for sure. So I think it's it's a balance between the two.
That's a great point. I would have asked you how you balance it, but I think that's the million-dollar question. Nobody's been able to do the perfect balance. But I really like how you say, it's okay to make compromises, but kind of perceive on your goals. You might not do it now, you might do it 5 years later, 10 years later, but kind of persist and make sure that you do achieve your goals. So, and I mean, I think that experience not just helped you grow in the career, but helped you build such an amazing center, which is helping so many people in India. And, I think I mentioned to you on a personal note, my brother was diagnosed with moya moya at age of 35. And, he got such great care at your center, and he's doing amazingly well. So on behalf of my whole family, thank you for doing that and building this amazing center.
Thank you.
I know you're leading a lot of different projects and programs, and you have a lot of leadership roles. Is there one project that was really close to your heart, or you felt like this one really brought me a lot of joy or self-satisfaction?
If you ask me, as you know, Sri Chitra is a research institute, and I have been involved in doing a lot of stroke-related research for the past, I think, more than 15 years now. But if you ask me which is really close to my heart, I would say there are 2 projects, because all the other projects are the usual work of doing the clinical work. But one project which I would say I'm just waiting for the results to be ready is with regard to an alternative treatment project which we are doing. Myself, and you must be knowing Dr. Jayaraj, who is also he's actually in fact a stroke leader from India. You know that in stroke, Ayurvedic treatment is an upcoming treatment in India, but that is one treatment for which even people come from abroad to get the Ayurvedic treatment as a part of a stroke rehabilitation. And we get a lot of patients coming from European countries and all for this treatment. But the only major problem with this treatment is that even though we know that it's a treatment where there is a lot of books and a lot of data, there is nothing available evidence-based in this. So this is one area we were, myself and Dr. Jayaraj was also very supportive. We thought about putting about a randomized controlled trial to look into the Ayurvedic treatment versus conventional treatment, how it makes a difference in the stroke rehabilitation. It was so tough to get this project going because, for Ayurvedic treatment, there is no evidence at all. It was so difficult to get through the ethics committee, so difficult to get our support from the project funding, but Indian Council of Medical Research was able to give us the project support, and through the Instruct network, we were able to do this project. It's now 2.5 years. We have just finished recruitment of our last patient, and probably waiting to get our results to be presented in one of the international stroke conference. So I think that is one thing which is very close, because it is a very challenging project to do. It is very difficult to do it because there are 2 systems of medicine involved: getting the patient, getting consented in our system, and getting the treatment done in Ayurveda treatment, and where you do not have the definite, side effects. We do not know anything. There are a lot of medicines, but we do not know what are the real effects of these medicines. So I think it is a very challenging project, and myself and Dr. Jayaraj is also part of it, and we are definitely hoping that it will really make some evidence base. So that is one thing. And second project which are involved is in the community project, which I enjoy, because we know that we are able to treat in a tertiary care center. It's only maybe less than 5 to 10% of the stroke patients. But what I think which makes you really happy is when you go into the community and do projects. So currently we are involved with the government in training the capacity building the health workers and doing a secondary prevention study, looking at how the health worker training is going to really make a difference. And we were able to train more than 1,000 health workers and ASHA workers in our district. Now we are doing that in the neighboring district, and the government is giving us the funding for that. So this is also another area where you really know, because sitting in Sri Chitra, what we are seeing is totally different from what we found in the community. More than 70% of the patients are not looking at their blood sugar or blood pressure or anything. So that is a real good learning. So I think that is also a project which I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, I knew it would be hard to choose one, but I'm really excited to see the results of your study. That's really applaudable to you and your team for taking that on. If we look back at the Ayurveda or Indian medicine, it goes back thousands and thousands of years. It's just we don't have a lot of written and, like you said, evidence-based. It just comes down from generation. Your grandmother tells you and her grandmother told her.
Yes.
So my husband always kind of jokes and says, like, if we have the data points, if you look, we have thousands of years of data and with such a huge population. So there has to be something. And, maybe it will be a full circle where we say, okay, you know what, Ayurvedic medicine may be just better than allopathic medicine. So thank you for taking on that big challenge. And I hope we get some success out of that. So I know we talked a lot about your kind of professional life, and is there anything, a kind of a fun fact or something, a hobby or something you like to do with your family that maybe none of us know and you would want to share with us?
Nothing like hobby, I would say, but I would say there is something really fun in the sense that now for the past 6 months, the way things have totally changed in me, I can tell you that is really different. Because my daughter, she's actually a nephrologist who has gone for a fellowship abroad. My grandson is there with me for the past 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So he has totally changed my way of system of working at home. Okay. So I think that is the biggest difference, I would say. And I'm really enjoying it. Because my work usually starts like after 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the night. You sit till 12 o'clock and then you start doing all your work. Now, for the past 6 months, I cannot sit in my computer at more than 9 o'clock. So he makes me to sleep, and he's only 6 years, but he tells me, Shaila Mama, you have to sleep early. You have to look after yourself. So it's actually fun and hearing, because you have seen all that at a time when you were a mother and you were having kids, you never had time for them, in fact. Hearing their stories or hearing about what is happening in their school. But now I'm enjoying that a lot, because he comes in the night when he's sleeping, he'll tell about what has happened in his school. So it's a big change. I'm just having all that now, which I have missed when I was doing my residency. So I think that's a big change. I'm really enjoying it. And I think that makes you feel, what you have missed, and I think he's making a lot of change in me.
I think they always say, like, look up to the kids to kind of bring that again, that innocence and that joy of life back, because we get so busy with just kind of getting things done and putting out fires. We don't enjoy the moments, and we don't kind of look around and kind of count our blessings. And I think kids have that perspective. They just see everything pure as it is, and help us recognize that if we take that few minutes to listen to them. So I'm so glad that you're having that opportunity with your grandson. And again, you're telling us how you multitask that. So thank you so much. I know you're busy and it's kind of late in the night. So thank you for taking the time. And I really enjoyed talking to you and look forward to hearing more about your projects.
Thank you, Dr. Geetanjali. It was really nice talking to you, and that too, inviting me. It's in fact a great honor to be part of this interview and talking about and thinking about all these things. No, when you have this interview, you think about whenever you think about all these things, and it was nice talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.